Okay.
Worship, proceed.
So I have a motion. Yep, I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby from the closed session. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins? And seconded from Councillor Finson.
So move your motion, Mayor.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks. All in favor? Okay. So we are in open now, correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to go back to my opening remarks. Do we have, we're on you. I would like to take a few minutes to acknowledge the enormous contributions of some of the members of our community who we've lost in the past month. Specifically, Fraser Ledrew passed away on January 18th of this year, following a brief but aggressive bout with cancer. Bev grew up here and built her home on her great-grandfather's original farmstead. Bev was a leader in our, an educator, first teaching at both Humphrey and Foley Elementary Schools, and then moving on to Parry Sound High School, where she served as vice principal. She sat on and chaired the Seguin Library Committee for many years. Bev was the epitome of volunteerism, never hesitating to lend a hand, be a leader, and take a stand for the betterment of her community. Bev is mourned by her husband, Mel, children Kirsten and Kyle, and their extended families, and many, many relatives and friends. As many of you know, David Kahn passed away 1 week later on Tuesday, January 25th, after a fall on his 81st birthday. David served as mayor of Seguin Township for over a decade, dedicating himself to improving the lives and life of Seguin's residents. A lasting legacy of David and his team of councillors and community volunteers was to eliminate our township's over $5 million in debt and $600,000 of underfunded capital expenditures and build a sustainable level of reserves from almost nothing when he took office. David was the very first to declare an environment first philosophy for Seguin, understanding how precious our lands and trees are to our future. We can also thank David for the view from the canoe philosophy of lakeside construction. David played a role in convincing several of our current councillors to run for office, mentoring them and teaching many of us how to campaign. David will be missed as a voice of reason, compassion, and community. David leaves his wife, Joan, who taught many throughout Seguin how to swim and play pickleball, as well as his son, Mike, many devoted grandchildren, and an extended family. Sadly, Seguin lost an important member of our operations team 2 weekends ago. As you drive our roadways, please tip your hat to Charlie O'Connor, who helped make all of your drives safe. Charlie leaves behind his wife, Georgia, Arizona, and Leo, his family. So on behalf of the entire Seguin community, I want to say thank you to Bev, David, and Charlie for their enormous contributions. Our flags were flying at half-mast in tribute to David Kahn until this morning, Monday, they were re-lowered as a tribute to our fellow staff member, Charlie, for a week. Brighter note, I would like to congratulate Debbie Allen for achieving the Certified Road Supervisor accreditation. Debbie's contributions to our operations road teams continues. We thank her for her continued commitment to keeping us all safe. So let's remember the important people in our community. And now I move to item 6 on your agenda, which is the road allowance issues, item 6. So council will now consider the following road allowance applications. Concession road allowance application number RAC 2019-0006-C for Narwhal. Bylaw number 2022-001. Shore road allowance application number RAC-2021-0009-H for Dike on Little Whitefish Lake. Bylaw number 2022-015. Shore road allowance application number RAC-2021-0008-H for Gernon on Lake Joseph. Bylaw number 2022-014. Shore road allowance application number RAC-2012-0006-F for Newton on Horseshoe Lake, and bylaw number 2022-011. Shore road allowance application number RAC-2021-0011-H for Sachs on Lake Joseph, bylaw number 2022-012. Have there been any written objections received related to the applications?
John Jackson submitted written objections to concession road allowance application number RAC 2019-0006-C Nayroth, and I believe those were addressed in the package. Jane Nayroth, the applicant, was to be present regarding that item. I don't see Miss Nayroth. Steve Fauner, agent for the applicant, is present to speak to shore road allowance application number RAC 2021-0009-H Dike. So I believe Mr. Jackson is present to speak to item A, the Nayroth, and Mr. Fauner to item B, the Dike.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, would you like to speak to the application for Nayroth?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just the only concern that the client of mine, Ms. Jones and family, had was the outstanding appeals that are somewhat related to access regarding her property that is at the end of Chutes Trail. And the thought was it would be smart, at least from our perspective, to deal with it as a package, if you like, in terms of the outstanding appeals which are tied to the access. So it was kind of like, why wouldn't we settle everything at once kind of thing, which I'm sure there could be a solution to. So that was the only message that I wanted to convey on behalf of the Joneses. So thank you.
Thank you very much. As I understand it, there's a process of, handing the trail over to the Chutes Trail Lake Association or Road Association and that type of thing. And I don't think Township's anticipating slowing anything down. We just have to work through the process. Are there any questions from council for Mr. Jackson? See no. Mr. Farr, would you like to speak to the application for Mr. Dike, the Dike family?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Your Worship. Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1A4. Yes, I was hoping to make a brief presentation. I'm sure I can do it within a 5-minute time frame. I do have a PowerPoint presentation if staff could allow me to be a presenter.
You should be good
Craig,
to go ahead.
I think that's in your
Okay,
policy.
thank you. I can't get it going here. Okay, can everyone see that? I have it on my screen, so I see a thumbs up by a councillor, so hopefully I'm good to go.
Mhm.
Yes, it's up.
Okay, thank you
Proceed.
very much. Thank you. So I just have noted the particulars of the abutting property here. It's not a huge property on Little Whitefish Lake. It's right near the Highway 141 bridge, about 150 feet of frontage and 2.5 acres in area. So of course we're applying to close the Shore Road allowance. And the reasons for doing this is just to consolidate the land. You'll see from the photos I have that he's using the Shore Road allowance, I guess like many people do with waterfront lots. It would also increase his property value, and it does provide him some additional options for future property redevelopment. So this is a survey here. I know it's a tiny bit fuzzy, but I just wanted to point out that in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the 42R number. So it has been deposited on title. This was done by LU Mon. This is just a close-up. So we actually have the road allowance already surveyed out. You can see it quite clearly. There's part 6. That's the area above the water. This is a building location survey showing the location of the buildings. You can see where there's a tiny encroachment on the original Shore Road allowance for the garage. And there is one for the corner of the dwelling, although that is a deck, I believe, but which is no longer there. But the existing dwelling is very close to the original Shore Road allowance, and you can see the septic tile bed on the property as well. So this is just a photograph looking into the property from Finlay's Road. And this is the rear of the existing dwelling as facing out towards the lake. This is the existing woodshed and garage, and the garage has since, these photos were taken in April of last year. Since that time, this garage has been removed, and you'll see from this photograph probably why. You know, it was obviously in a poor state and in a state of disrepair. So it has been removed. The edge of the road allowance is actually right at the corner of this building. This is looking the other direction towards the narrow part of the lake here, and that's basically the Shore Road allowance in front of you. And this is looking back over the Shore Road allowance to the dwelling from the dock. You can see the dock in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can see he currently uses this area a bit. He does have a picnic table there. This is looking north towards the Highway 141 bridge. And again, this is the shoreline and the Shore Road allowance. And this is looking, this would be looking south towards the open part, more open part of Little Whitefish Lake. And this is the dwelling itself. And this is the tile bed on the property as well. And it's well set back. It's off the Shore Road allowance. So just in terms of the analysis, it's fairly quick. Just the additional land to be added is shown there, about 9150 square feet is being added. The frontage is not changing. And again, this will consolidate the property and increase its value and permit some accessory buildings in the front yard, such as a gazebo, if he is approved for acquisition of the Shore Road allowance. So in conclusion, I think that this is consistent with other Shore Road allowance closures that I'm familiar with in other municipalities, especially Muskoka Lakes Township, as well as the town of Huntsville. It provides a revenue for the municipality in the short term because of the purchase price, and certainly increases the property value. So that would increase presumably the taxes in the future. So that's the extent of my presentation. I'm certainly here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does council have any questions of Mr. Farr?
I do, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Moffat?
Thank you. Mr. Farner, I'm sure you're aware of the requirements or limitations with regards to the Shore Road allowance, or your client is, that's stipulated in the agreement.
Yes, I did look through staff report in terms of the restrictions, and yes, you have to be consistent and comply with the zoning bylaw as an example, and there are some other restrictions, yes.
Well, there's some restrictions in terms of buildings, uses, buildings and structures. That's what you're referring to?
Yes, I believe as long as you're compliant with the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Lauren, Irvin, you wrote all staff reports. Do you have anything to add on any of the Shore Road allowances that are in front of us?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just back to the NAROth report, the first item. I know it has a lot of moving pieces, but the consideration tonight is only for the concession road allowance portions described as parts 3 and 5 on the reference plan, which is 42R 21606. These parts would be transferred to the NAROth. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if we should deal with the NAWAS, then go on to Dyke and have you comment on each one as we go through it. Probably makes a little bit more sense. So I will read that I have bylaw number 2002-01, being a stop and road allowance, number RAC 2019-006-C is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I'll move that motion, Mayor, but it was cut out a little
And
bit.
seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion. Thank you.
All in favor?
What's the name? Is it NAROth we're voting on?
Now,
Yes.
now, Ross, the first one. Now, item 6A.
Okay.
Okay, so pass. So, Lauren, would you like to say anything about the Dyke Shore Road Allowance, which is item 6B?
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have much further information. I think the agent from Northern Vision Planning did a good summary, but I'm here if there's any questions.
Any questions? I will read the motion. I have a motion or a bylaw number 2022-015, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original Shore Road Allowance, application number RAS-2021-0009-H for Dyke, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Lauren, we move to the Shore Road application, which is item 6C on page 77. Do you have anything to add there?
Thank you, Your Worship. This one's quite straightforward. The owners at 141C Island View Road are looking to purchase a shore road allowance abutting their property on Lake Joseph. There's no environmental protection area, no flooded lands, but I'm here if you have any questions.
I see no questions, so could I have, I'll read this. Bylaw number 2022-014, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original Shore Road Allowance, application number RAS 2021-0008-H for Gernon and Ziegel, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from I hope.
Could you repeat that, Mayor? We didn't hear you.
Could I, Councillor Collins, for this bylaw?
I'll move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Vincent.
I'll second that.
All in favor? You. Okay, and Lauren, we move on to 6D for Newton, if you have anything to add.
Thanks, Your Worship. So this is an application. The owners at 136 Elsasser Road are looking to purchase their shore road allowance abutting their property. This is on Horseshoe Lake, and both neighboring shore road allowances have already been closed. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions? Okay, I have bylaw number 2022-011, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS 2012-0006-H for Newton and Beaubois, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor. Very clear.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and we have 6E, Lauren, for Saks.
Thank you, Your Worship. The owners at 127B Steeles Road are looking to purchase a shore road allowance abutting their property on Otter Lake. A deeming bylaw was required with this one because the property is on a plan of subdivision. So the deeming bylaw will allow the shore road allowance to merge with the property. I'm here if you have any questions.
Any
Lauren.
questions? No?
Lauren,
Councillor Osborne?
did you say Otter Lake? Did you mean Lake Joe? Thought I heard Otter Lake.
Sorry, you're correct, Councillor Osborne. It is Lake Joseph.
Thank you.
Okay, could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved,
Or,
Mayor.
sorry, I haven't read my motion yet. Sorry. That bylaw number 2022-012, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS-2021-0011-H for Saks is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. So could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. So we are moving back in the deeming bylaw with the last one, that bylaw number 2022-013, being a bylaw to deem Part Lot 8 of Plan M95 pursuant to Section 50(4) of the Planning Act not to be on a plan of subdivision, property roll number 4903-010-002-16300, file number D 2021-0006-H for Saks is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
So moved, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the deeming bylaw? Thank you. Okay. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0013-H for Crisson and Porter, and consent application number B 2021-0018-H for Crisson and Porter. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0017-H for Notkin, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0014-F for Wilson, and consent application numbers B 2021-0025-F, and B, 2021-0026 for F, and B, 2021-0027-F, and B, 2021-0028-F for Wilson. And finally, zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0018-F for Colt, and consent application number B 2021-0031-F for Colt. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I still move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
All in favor of going into the public meeting? Okay, thank you. Bear with me, folks. I've got some reading here. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment not owning land within 120 meters of the area to which it applies and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide their full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0013-H and consent application number B 2021
I think the mayor left us. Jason, I would have been pleased as acting mayor to run this meeting, but guess it's a little late now.
Her worship, a moment to reconnect and we'll see what happens. So if everybody can just hang tight for one moment, please.
Safety of skaters is Peter was to step on that, go down.
Craig, are you able to put people on mute so we can eliminate some of the background noise? Please.
The problem is, Councillor Moffat, I'm not sure who it is to mute. And one of them could be the mayor trying to get in.
Can't you see which person is not muted and then just put them on mute?
There's quite a few of them.
Okay, sorry, could I ask that anyone that's not speaking put themselves on mute so we can eliminate the background noise? Thank you.
I have to see the ends up there.
Join the meeting.
Hi, I'm back, I think. My apologies.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I will continue with the Prison Porter zoning bylaw. So the purpose is to create new shoreline residential on Lake Rosso, which is to be accessed by Farm Sandy Bay Road, establish an access easement over the lot, rezone subject zones, lot frontage and lot of the proposed severed and retained. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment also seeks to zone a portion of the retained lot to the environmental protection EP zone to protect the rock barren and associated located at the rear of the subject lands. Remove the environmental protection EP shoreline on the subject lands in accordance with the conclusions of an environmental impact study that identify these lands are not type 1 fish habitat, they are type 2 fish habitat, and to rezone a portion of the subject lands were subject to a previous law application that was approved, consider B 2007-H from the limited service residential zone to the shoreline residential 1 zone to match the zoning of the benefiting lands, the abutting properties to the subject lands. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Did everyone understand what the mayor read as the purpose of this rezoning and consent application? Madam Mayor, with your permission, I think what'll happen, if you're okay with this, is I will read the entire skit. We will leave for you to do the presiding officer part of asking about comments, and maybe I'll even read the resolutions and the motions and leave it to you to ask for the mover and seconder and declare it carried or not, if that's all right. Okay.
That's fine. I'm comfortable with that. And there are several addendum items related to this.
Correct, yes.
Correspondence, right?
If everyone,
yes.
If everyone was,
go ahead.
Yeah, if everyone was good with the purpose, if not, I can repeat that. I don't see anyone asking for it to be repeated, so I'll carry on. Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on January 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Correspondence stating concerns has been received from David Jarvis, Harry Jones, Monica Kennedy, and Gregory Colbert. Gregory and Lori Colbert, Harry Jones, Rick Hunter, agent for the applicant, and Jan Krazan, the applicant, have registered to speak to these applications. Mr. Colbert, I believe you're present.
Yes, he is.
On mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
You're present to speak?
Yes, I'm present to speak. Yes. So I was simply, my note was if that road was, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Is if that road was, is there going to be more access on that road? Is it if the 600 meters that is is a narrow lane, is maybe there could be created, that would be, could create a bottleneck and simply create a couple of slots down that road where a car could tuck over on the right or the left. Therefore, we're not going to be, if there's just simply going to be additional lots created. So it's just, the concern is just about the road. And so we could either widen the road, which would seem like overkill, but maybe just creates little sidebars, 1 or 2 down the road, which would allow for a car to pull over and another car to pass, because right now you can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you.
And we'll leave some of the responses from staff and the consultants till the end. Harry Jones, you're present.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon all. This property has been in my family for almost 140 years, that of course, which hasn't been sold. And one of the statements I noticed in the documentation I received from Seguin Township was that apparently there was a requirement to confirm who owns Farm Sandy Bay Road. The answer is me. It is part of the property that I hold. I'd just like to ensure that as a result of this severance or another one in the future, that I will not be held responsible for improving the road, such as creating those pullover lots that have been suggested. You know, recognizing that there are still many lots that could be created. There is much property available on, say, Dyson Lake, for instance. And, you know, when you look at the road, I would suggest that it currently only meets section B 12.2, subsection C of the official plan. So I suspect it would be very expensive to bring it up to municipal standards. Perhaps this is the reason that Seguin Township added a statement to the property titles of the lands that made up Sandy Bay Farm just before the sale of various properties in the early 90s. This required all owners to do more than just put in a severance request for future severances. My father sold the property to Messrs. Clark, Jackson, and Jarvis in the early 90s. And I don't believe there was any formal agreement at that time about the road. Those 3 gentlemen, as purchasers of the lot, simply agreed that they would build the new road section and maintain it. Today, Mr. Curzan owns the lot that was originally sold to Mr. Jackson. We've now gone from 3 property owners to 4, and I'm sure there will soon be 5. And then again, like I say, there's another 8 or a dozen lots that could be created on Dyson Lake at some point in the future. Naturally, I do not wish to be burdened with the expense of either improving or maintaining a road that I rarely use, a road that is very busy already in the summer. I hear constant vehicle traffic on the road going in and out. Over the next year or 2, the construction traffic will be constant and the number of homes will be increased by about a third, 33% as a result of the increase in road traffic. So I ask that the township take a moment to consider what they envision as the future of this property, one that at one time extended from the township line all the way north to the south shore of Morgan's Bay and all the way back to Highway 632. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Hunter and Mr. Curzan are both present if you wish to speak and maybe respond to some of those concerns.
Yes, hi, it's Jan Curzan here with my wife Tracy. Hope you can hear us.
We can.
Okay,
we
great.
can, yes.
Excellent. Harry, it's good to see you and to have your comments around the road. You know, obviously, as a neighbor, we have everything but the strongest interest to make sure that we maintain that road and fix any repairs that might be caused from any construction. And at the same time, to participate together with your support. Obviously, it's your ownership, although we have the right of way to ensure that, you know, we have a reasonable way for traffic to get past itself. I mean, obviously, the way the road was conceived originally so long ago, things have moved on, and I think it's fair for us as joint users and you as owner to have a discussion to find a solution. So that's very much in our interest. We're looking to be good neighbors, and find solutions. And I know that I've had some discussions with some of the other neighbors around, and we're going to sit down and figure those things out. So I'm glad you brought that to the attention of council. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands what our plans are. And perhaps from our side, we are going to continue to hold the land which is undeveloped. We don't have plans to do any construction in the near future. This is a long-term interest for ourselves. We have an existing cottage on 3 Mile Lake, which we use. We have 4 small children, and that fits for us perfectly today. But in the future, we may change and then ultimately move over to Rosso. We've been in Muskoka since 2003. At the same time, we understand that there are some concerns about future development, and I can only say that the new lot that's coming in is going to be for a friend of Ron Lloyd, who's my neighbor. And we think that that's going to be another family that comes into the bay. So overall, we think it's going to be a great outcome for the location. Thank you for your time.
And Mr. Hunter, did you have any comments?
Mr. Chair, I think that my comments would normally follow after the township sort of gives a presentation, if there's anything else. I did have a PowerPoint presentation that was prepared, but again, if we're not following a particular script, that's not a problem either. I just wanted to point out, perhaps at this point, and if there are other questions that come up later on, we can deal with them as well. The proposal is for the creation of one new shoreline residential lot. I'm sorry, can everyone hear me all right? I can see people with their hands up. Okay. It is for one new additional lot, and there have been some concerns that were raised about how the frontage is measured and whether that would result in further development potential on the shoreline properties. I can assure you that based on the work that we've done, there is no intention to have something structured so that based on this lot configuration, there could be any further lot division on the property. It comes up as a quirk of the township zoning, I would call it a quirk of the township zoning bylaw that measures frontage 8 meters back from the shoreline. And in this case, the lot line cuts off at a very sharp angle, very close to the shoreline. So by the time you reach 8 meters, you're actually very far from the, you measure basically a large frontage. But I think I agree with your planning consultant's comments on this as well, that the real shoreline is the actual shoreline when you're looking at the official plan and when you're looking at your standards for construction. So I don't believe there's potential for any further severance besides the one lot that is before you right now. The zoning bylaw amendment is there for 2 reasons. One, you recall, or your bylaw, the limited services residential zone will sets the existing lot structure as exists at the present time. So any severance of a lot in the limited services residential zone requires a zoning amendment to reflect the new lot configuration. So those will be carried forward into the bylaw. The second one is for a small piece next to the Lloyd property, the property to the south of the development, where there was an approval for a lot addition from the Krizan property to the Lloyd property so that they would actually own the title of the road access to their cottage rather than just have a right of way on it. And one of the conditions that the township asked for on that was to rezone that portion shoreline residential 1 to match the zoning of the main house for the Lloyd property. So it would show that they're merging. So those are the main items that were in my presentation on it. I would point out that Riverstone Environmental did undertake the environmental review, and they actually determined that there was a relatively large rock barren at the back of the property, on the west back of the property, that warrants some protection. So that we've obviously, as our zoning amendment, we have asked that be zoned environmental protection along with the buffer area to permanently protect that area. The other thing that the Riverstone study did determine was that there was no type 1 fish habitat along this part of the shoreline, and that there was a small piece of EP land that was protecting a type 1 fish habitat that, again, from what Riverstone have indicated, just does not exist. So therefore, we made the request that the zoning just take that off, as it's not needed at this point. If that was a concern or an issue, whether the zone actually stays or not doesn't affect the development potential of the property or even the location of the proposed docking and boathouse that may be put on that particular property. I think that's probably all I would have to say at this point, other than once again, I always think of something else extra to say. Remind you that the proposal meets the provisions of the provincial policy statement that's outlined in your consultant's report. The application conforms to the official plan, and in my opinion, as a planner, the development represents good planning and is appropriate for the use and development of the property in the surrounding area. So with that, I'm just here to answer any questions as they come up, and said I can always pull up part of the PowerPoint presentation that I had if you wanted to see some photos that we had at the site as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. If you had a presentation to provide, please feel free to go ahead.
I think I'm okay with not going through it at the present time. I'm assuming that your staff will provide some highlights. And like I said, if there are just any specific questions, and if to get the answer, I want to refer to the presentation, I would do that. If I rather than just take up your time and go through the whole thing again.
Okay, Mr. Jamie Robinson is representing the staff for this report.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I think Mr. Hunter's actually provided a good overview of the application and what it intends to do. Again, just to be clear for council, this is a public meeting today. The staff report that's been prepared is an information report that's included in the agenda. It's not a recommendation report. The next steps after today's meeting would be that, again, the public have an opportunity to provide comments this evening. Any comments that are provided, we take back and conduct any research that needs to be done on those comments, and then proceed to council with a recommendation report at a subsequent council meeting. I think it's pretty evident to everybody. The purpose of the application is to create a new shoreline lot, and subsequently the implementing zoning amendment that goes along with that application. So I don't think I need to spend any more time going over the application. Mr. Clerk, you've provided an overview, and Mr. Hunter has provided some of the specific details. So.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councillor Osborne?
Yes, I do. First off, I understand the EP zone has been removed. I'm always a little nervous when we do that for whatever reason. That's just my personal opinion. But I'm more concerned with Mr. Jones' comments concerning the road. I believe Mr. Jones stated that he is the owner of that road and is concerned about the size of the road, the level of traffic, and mentioned Dyson Lake. My pictures aren't very wide. I do see the word lake next to one of the shots, and I'm wondering, is that Dyson Lake or is that another lake? It's it's below and to the left of the subject property. There's a lake there. Is the same road used to access that small lake?
I suspect so. That property along Dyson Lake would, I believe, currently be owned by Mr. Colbert.
All right. I just noticed on the drawing, I'm looking at our land use designation shot, and it looks like a river, a waterway that comes into that little bay, and then beyond that there is a lake. And I just wondered if this road
is that figure 3.
It is figure.
Yes, that's correct. It is figure 3. Yeah.
It's orange.
Figure 3, the orange band at the very left, that would be Dyson Lake.
Okay, and does this road access that lake? Or is it used for access?
There is no other right of way to get there. My right of way goes into across Mr. Kazan's property to Mr. Colbert's, and that would then be how you would have to get off to Dyson.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fellner?
Yeah, thanks. Question for, I'm not sure who. So right at the moment, I'm looking at the key map, figure 1. So exactly how many properties are serviced by the Farm Seeley Bay Drive currently?
There would be, well, my property, because I have fields just to the north of the property that the subject lands is that you would see there. There's also the Jarvis property to the north and east that goes out to the point. And then there is the little square right along the shoreline that is Mr. Lloyd's property. And then the rest of the property in there that would belong to Mr. Colbert. Those would be your owners.
Right, so we've got, right now, yourself, that's one property, right? And we've got one lakeshore lot to the north. The lot that's under consideration now is 2, and 3, and a small square is 4. Is that correct?
Those 4 properties.
Pardon me?
I would agree with that. Those 4 properties. Plus, I also use the road in order to maintain the farm fields.
Yeah, it's your road, right?
That is correct.
You own the road, so the other property has a registered, I'm taking has a registered right of way over your road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the Dyson Lake, wherever it, and I can't sort of see it on any of the figures that I've got either, but that you alluded to.
Well, Dyson Lake, in all likelihood, is that black line you see that sort of notches in like a letter D at the extreme left side of that figure 1 you're looking at, just above Wiley's Lake.
Oh, I see. But there's nothing. Is that piece of property that has the frontage on Dyson Lake, does that also have a registered right of way over your road? Or no? Presently?
I have no idea, because I provide a right of way to Mr. Colbert, and then I don't know what happens. I don't know how that part of it works. I don't know whether you'd have to be a lawyer to figure that out or what.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Clerk, I just weigh in for a second here to remind council that these are for public information and that public consultation will follow, or public meetings will follow on each of these items at a later date.
There was a couple of syllables that I missed there. Perhaps your clerk could repeat it, please.
So
Well,
maybe,
just to say that public consultation will continue, will happen at a later date as well. These zoning amendments are for information at this stage to council.
Just to be clear, these are the statutory public meetings tonight.
Okay.
But it's an information report. There will be a subsequent report to council with a recommendation. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, but there's no voting tonight.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Robinson. Are there any further questions or anyone wish to provide any additional information on this application? All right, thank you. We will move on to the next application. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R20210017-H Notkin is to rezone the subject lands from the shoreline residential zone to a shoreline residential exception zone to facilitate the construction of a screened porch and deck addition to the existing single detached dwelling, as well as the construction of a detached garage. Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on January 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be read in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Correspondence stating concerns has been received from James Buter. Eric Naughton, the applicant, has registered to speak to this application. Mr. Naughton?
I'm present. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the application. I'll be brief in my submissions, most of which are included in the report to council, including the supplement at, I believe, Schedule B of the materials. The subdivision in question is about 70 years old. The lots are on a narrow peninsula that juts out into Little Whitefish, and as a consequence, the lots have a shallow depth, hence the proposed application. The application stems from a desire to improve the year-round viability of the property, notably, as mentioned, to enclose and moderately expand the side porch and to construct a detached two-car garage. Two separate planning consultation meetings were held to review the proposal. Site plan amendments were made to reflect the recommendations of Township planning staff, who, by the way, have been very courteous and helpful throughout this process. The structures are modest in size. They don't overpower the lot. They're well spaced on the property. The proposed screen porch would be located in the area of the existing porch, and the adjacent small open deck would fit within a nook of the house at the southeast corner. The proposed garage would be situated within the existing driveway area on the property. Existing coverage, that being the legal coverage, is 10%. The proposed additions will bring that coverage up to 15%. The standard in the neighborhood is typical of the proposal in this application. A few examples have been cited in the materials that are before council. I just want to reiterate those briefly. In particular, lot 16, which is immediately next door to the subject property, has two garages. One is a two-car garage that's attached to the house, and then a second detached, both in close proximity to the road. It's my understanding that the previous owner of the property had an application approved by council to allow for the lot coverage increase, effectively to double the coverage from 8 to 16% in that case in order to add the structure. Lots 4, 6, and 7, which are directly across from the subject property, either directly or diagonally across, each have either a detached single car or double car garage, also in close proximity to the road. So in summary, there's significant precedent in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, and it's consistent generally with the nature and scope of development in the area. I think maybe most importantly, the proposed accessory lot coverage, in this case, the increase is only about 0.5%. It would go from 5% currently to 5.6%. Those are my supplemental submissions. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, can I inquire, I'm sorry, which application were you here for?
I'm actually here if there were any questions for Mr. Notkin, although he described it fairly well. I was assisting him with his application. Just by way of possible additional information, I think Eric caught the actual fact that the existing coverage and yard requirements are not as extreme as described in the report. So the 10% is what is existing, and he's going to 15% on a lot that's a little under an acre. And the existing rear yard from the house to the road is 2 meters, so the 1.2 is not an extreme deviation from the normal 10 meter as required. So just add those little matters that I think are important for this application. And I do appreciate from Jamie's comments, this is the statutory public meeting and there'll be no decisions, but as Eric has offered to answer any questions. The neighbor who expressed a letter, I did exchange emails to explain him the nature of the application, and he seemed satisfied. So I have been talking to a number of neighbors about the application. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Robinson, would you care to speak to this?
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I think the applicant has done a good job describing the extent of the variance or the extent of the amendment and what Mr. Jackson has provided. The report does identify that the application is for an additional garage on the property. It is a unique lot in terms of its size in the area, and it has a limited depth, which does result in an increased lot coverage, in this case, a requirement to facilitate the proposed additional garage. If there's any questions that come from staff that come from council or members of the public, I'd be happy to do my best to try to answer those for you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I just have one question for Mr. Notkin. Was there any consideration for a smaller size garage in order to have less coverage or less proximity to the lot line or anything like that? Or is it a 2-car garage and that's it?
No, of course, I'd be open to consider, but again, 2 separate planning consultation meetings were held with staff, and it was my understanding that the proposal was deemed to be reasonable and in keeping with the nature and character of the neighborhood. If you look, in fact, at the site plan, you'll see that the way the garage is situated, it's parallel or almost perfectly parallel to the roadway to bring it roughly in line with the corner of the existing dwelling. So it doesn't jut out beyond the property line.
I was thinking more in proximity to the property line and lot coverage such that you had a smaller accessory building.
Again, I'm certainly open to considering a smaller garage, although it is my preference, given the long-term planned use of the property, to have a double-car garage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It appears, I realize that Marine Drive, which is in my ward, Mr. Notkin, is a very slender, I guess is the word, peninsula out there with not a lot of setback room. Although I wonder about your existing boat storage, which is an existing building, which is next to the proposed 2-car garage. Will it be removed? And if you did remove it, would that facilitate movement of the garage further to give a better rear yard setback?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the existing boat storage is a single car boat storage, if you will, with a marine rail system. It's fully consumed by the boat. It is not my intention to remove that structure. That's obviously included within the existing 5% lot coverage. So the proposal to add the second structure, which again is consistent with that in the immediate vicinity of the property, would only incrementally increase that coverage by 0.6%.
Okay, thank you very much.
Greg, I have a question.
Councillor Collins?
Yes. I guess this will be for Jamie. We're running our official plan, Seguin's official plan this year. Are any of these percentages, these numbers going to change in the future? The 5%, the 8%? Are they changing in our official plan this year, or they generic right across the board numbers?
Yeah, through your worship, to the councillor. So these are zoning bylaw provisions, not official plan provisions. And I can't speak towards what council might or might not do, or what the consultant preparing the OP might or might not suggest related to these. So it would be really premature for me to comment on that. They could change. They may not change. So I can't really say one way or the other.
Okay.
What I will say though, I guess, is just that this is a unique lot from a depth perspective. The new building does add additional width of buildings associated with this lot. And those would be really the two sort of principal planning considerations here that would be evaluated through the review of this application.
Do you have any idea when these lots were created on that peninsula?
I believe it was the plan of subdivision was about 70 years ago.
Well, 70. Yeah. Yeah, there's a number of lots in similar size in Seguin Township, waterfront lots, especially on smaller and middle-sized lakes, especially in my ward, where there's Star Lake and Sugar Lake and Maple Lake and Duck Lake and Lake Isabella, and where lots of 0.45 acres up to less than an acre with 100 foot to 120, 130 foot shoreline. So I can see where you're going with this, and because of those lot sizes back in the day, if it's comparable with other lots in your neighborhood, then I can see why you would want to do this. That's all I have to say.
Councillor Fellner?
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. No, I'm quite familiar with this neighborhood. This is sort of just down the street for me. I've been on Mooring Drive numerous times, especially in that section. What's being proposed here is consistent with what's been developed there. I mean, there's just there's the rear yard setback. The lots just aren't deep enough to permit it. So it's a pretty modest proposal in my opinion. And again, it's just indicative of, the percentages are calculated on all, on the assumption that everyone has a lot that meets the minimum criteria for a lot in Seguin, which isn't the case. So that's about all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I will give you some clarification here. The mayor has passed over to me simply to read through the non-legislated part, which explains the whole reason and purpose for these applications, and simply to make sure that everyone gets heard, which is the real intent of the public meeting. When we're done this part of the public meeting, the mayor is going to take back over with the resolutions and motions later. The purpose of consent application numbers B.
I'm still here. I'm still listening. Yeah,
right.
I'm still on the call, so it's just better for Craig to read all the long parts.
Thank you, Mayor, and that is important. The mayor is the one that is present. The purpose of consent application numbers B 2021-0025-F, B 2021-0026-F, B 2021-0027-F, and B 2021-0028-F Wilson is to create 4 new residential lots. The severed lots range in size from 0.97 hectares to 2.2 hectares with frontages from 45 meters to 94 meters along Rankin Lake Road and Old Otter Lake Road. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0014-F Wilson is to recognize deficiencies and amend the R1 zone. Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on January 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act. No correspondence has been received regarding these applications. No one has registered to speak to these applications. Mr. Robinson, if you would explain the application, please.
I think it's Taylor on this one.
Oh, Taylor, sorry. Thank you, Mark.
The purpose of the application is to create 4 new lots, so it'd be 5 lots in total. The purpose for the rezoning is to recognize frontages going down to 45 meters when 60 is required, and 1 hectare of lot area is required, and one of the lots is 0.97 hectares. The lot creation is in the Foley Center settlement area.
Your Worship, I thought I registered to speak to this, but I obviously the paperwork didn't get through, but I'm actually assisting Mr. Wilson with this. I wonder if I could speak to it.
Yes, please go ahead, John.
Thank you very much, Council. This application, as Taylor has described, is for the creation of 4 new lots on Rankin Lake Road, just adjacent to the cold storage that may put the contacts in place for councillors. The application is in the heart of the Foley settlement area where growth is supported by the municipality's planning instruments. Mr. Wilson has undertaken a battery of assessments, including hydrogeological assessments, septic suitability, because of the close proximity to the railway. He's done noise and vibration studies. He's had an environmental impact assessment done. It's currently being peer reviewed by municipal environmentalists. There was a planning justification report prepared. Given the conditions that we found in all those assessments, it's an excellent place for development. It actually backs onto a part of the snowmobile trail, or the park to park trail, which isn't a problem for the application. Mr. Wilson's an avid snowmobiler, and he's quite in support of protecting that in terms of any measures that council may wish to impose. The application will involve a 5126 consent agreement, which is kind of a mini subdivision agreement to ensure all the measures that have come forward in these assessments are imposed. It's a little bit of a variance in terms of the number of lots, where usually in the planning world today, it's a 3-in-1 kind of a scenario, but this application, we think, justifies being varied. The municipal policy has that kind of flexibility in it. If you check the language, there's no legislative requirement, so I think that's important. And I think most of all these lots are very are going to be very positively received in terms of the housing stock for the municipality. And the oddity of Mr. Wilson, he's a house builder, so he's creating these lots. He's actually got construction underway, and every day people stop and ask them if they could buy a dwelling that he's building. So it's a testimony to the fact that we're still in this global housing crisis, even in Seguin and Foley Township. The variance for frontage, in my mind, isn't that critical, particularly when the lots have the attributes we found that they have. There's pretty good sand deposits on this property, and they're all going to have lot sizes well over the hectare minimum, which is, I believe, a more critical standard for lots that are independently served by private septic and individual wells. And the test wells that we had done on the site have produced gushers. So each lot's going to be able to service a 30-unit motel if that ever comes along, as an example. So unless there's no questions, I do appreciate, again, it's a statutory public meeting, and we're looking forward to a positive reception by council in the near future. Thank you.
Councillor Coles?
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you, John, for that presentation. I've taken a closer look at this property, and actually, I think it's excellent use for the property as it currently exists, and as it's part of the Foley settlement area. It's kind of an extension of what exists there now. Doesn't overpopulate the area. I think it's a really good use, and as John has said, the geological situation is positive, and the water supply is positive. So it's all good, and it helps with the housing situation. Thanks.
Councillor Osborne?
Thank you, Clerk. John, is this property, did it used to be a small cabin resort called Pine something? And is that road that goes to the, I guess, the west, is that the old road to Tapatoo, or am I in a different location in my mind?
You're slightly off the location. It's actually greenfields. There's never been anything on this property.
Oh, so it's not where the Pine something cabins were?
No.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I see no problems with this application. It's suitable and provides more housing. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next application. The purpose and effect of consent application number B 2021-0031-F Cults is to create one new 38-hectare rural residential lot with 70 meters of frontage on Laux Road. The retained lands would have a resulting lot area of 16.5 hectares with approximately 250 meters of frontage on Blackstone Crane Lake Road. The purpose and effect of the associated zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0018-F is to rezone the proposed severed lot from the rural zone to rural residential exception zone to recognize deficient lot frontage and establish setbacks from Otter Lake and a CP rail line. An additional permitted use will be added to the rural residential exception zone to permit the existing hunt camp. A portion of the property is proposed to be rezoned from rural to environmental protection in accordance with recommendations from the submitted scoped environmental impact study. Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on January 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. No correspondence has been received related to this application. Mr. Adam Cults, agent for the applicant, has registered to speak to these applications. Mr. Cults was present.
I am here, yeah.
Okay.
I just turned the video off. Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. I think that basically covered it. What we're looking to do, I'm acting as the agent for the owner on this property. It's currently a 54-hectare property with a dwelling on it, a barn, several outbuildings that will be on the proposed severed property. It's basically right now it's just a wood lot. There's no structures on it other than what I guess is considered a hunt camp, but it's essentially a 8 by 12 foot plywood box essentially out there. So I'm basically just here to answer any of your questions or concerns that you might have regarding this.
Lauren Irvine is here to present the report. Lauren?
Ann McDermott's cell phone. Join the meeting.
Thank you, Clerk. Your summary was pretty good, but yes, this is just an application for one new lot with frontage on Laux Road. The associated zoning bylaw will rezone the recommended areas from that scoped environmental impact study from rural to environmental protection. The remainder of the severed lot will be rezoned from rural to rural residential and will address deficient lot frontage and impose setbacks from Otter Lake and the nearby rail line, and as well to permit the existing small hunt camp on the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. As Jamie Robinson mentioned, this is just a public meeting report with the recommendation to follow at a later date.
Does council have any questions? Seeing no questions, Mayor McDermott, I'll turn this back over to you.
Hi. Am I there?
You are, yes?
Okay, so I am going to read a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. The zoning bylaw amendment application R 2021-0013-H for Kristen and Porter, and consent application number B 2021-0018-H for Kristen and Porter. Zoning bylaw amendment application R 2021-0017-H for Notkin. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0014-F for Wilson, and consent application numbers B 2021-0025F, B 2021-0026-F, B 2021-0027-F, and B 2021-0028-F for Wilson. And finally, zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0018-F for Colts, and consent application number B 2021-0031-F for Colts. Could I have a motion from Daryl Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor. Very clear. Thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we move on to receive the staff reports. So I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin is hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the February 7th, 2022 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
Second that.
All in favor of receiving staff reports? Okay, thank you. Okay, so shall I read the motion first, Craig, or do you want to speak to it first?
Yes, please read the motion, Mayor.
Okay, so I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-028, being a bylaw to authorize the establishment of the West Perry Sound Joint Election Compliance Audit Committee, and to repeal bylaw number 2018-014, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so your motion, Mayor.
Okay. And seconded by Councillor Simpson.
I second that.
And Craig, do you want to speak to it a little bit?
Sure. So really, this is a joint election compliance audit committee. It's required by legislation. We currently have one. The 6 West Perry Sound area municipalities are members. Whitestone is a member of East Perry Sound Joint Compliance Audit Committee, and they have requested to become part of the West Perry Sound Committee effective after the next election. Council has to appoint these committees by October 1st of the election year. So we are getting this done and out of the way before we get into the election.
Does anybody have any questions for Craig? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the statement of the Treasurer for 2021, remuneration of appointed members attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Could I have a motion by Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that motion.
It's pretty straightforward, but Michelle, do you want to speak to it at all?
This is just a requirement. We have to report on this every year.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle? All in favor? Carries. Thank you. And the second one, I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the statement of the Treasurer for 2021 remuneration of elected members attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner?
Is seconded.
All in favor? You. And the next one is a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the following 2022 donations. Now, Michelle has made some recommendations in her report, and I'll call for a mover of the motion, but then we have to fill in the numbers. So could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I still moving your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Vincent.
Did you say me?
And,
Second, I'll second that.
okay, thank you. So you see the recommendations from Michelle, and she has included what we gave them last year. Does anybody disagree or want to change the amounts as recommended by Michelle? That makes it easy.
What? Excuse me, Mayor, one question. Sunday night hockey, did you expound, Michelle? What that is?
Sunday Night Hockey is the group, it's a private group. They rent the arena from 7 to 9 every Sunday night, and kids under the age of 18 can come and play hockey for free.
Thank you.
I believe they also get free skates if they need them, and donated
If they
everything
need
if they
them,
need them.
that's correct. They get free equipment if they need them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I need to fill this in as I understand it, clerk. So 1,000, 3,000 for Festival of the Sound, 3,000 for the Horticultural Society, 2,000 for Safe Quiet Lakes, the Cadets, 1,000, the Ardeliana Chamber Music at 3,000, which is our maximum for any donation here. Sunday Night Hockey is 2,500. Rotary Club 1,750, and the Soar Rope Skipping Team 2,500. Is everyone in agreement with those amounts?
Mayor,
All in favor?
Mayor, I noticed
sorry?
that I noticed that Soar rope skipping team. It says NA for 21. Does that mean they folded, or is that no
I
longer?
believe they couldn't hold. I believe they couldn't hold it because of COVID.
So
They
there
didn't
will-
apply in 2021.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. So Cliff, you've written them down, I've written them down, they're exactly as recommended. Okay, and we're going now to a motion that bylaw number 2022-027, being a bylaw to validate the title of a lot within the Township of Seguin, application number VOT-2022-0001-C for Adora Pridgar at 28B Narrow Side Road, Seguin, Ontario, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time. And I will call on Councillor Moffat to move this,
I so move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
And for some reason we missed we've jumped something here. We've jumped from the semi-annual water drinking fountain. My apologies, Dominique. But so we got this on. All in favor? Or Craig, do you want to speak to this at all?
Maybe if I could, Madam Mayor, Jamie Robinson is here to speak to this, and also an agent for the applicant has registered to speak to this one as well.
Okay, and Dominique, I'm sorry, we'll go back and do the semi-annual water report after we complete this one. So go ahead, Jamie.
Sure. Thank you, Worship. This is a pretty unique situation. It relates to a validation of title for the PIDCARE validation of title. This is a situation that arises when there's an issue, when there's a legal issue related to a property, and it's similar to a consent, but you're not specifically asking for consent under the Planning Act, because there's really just been an error in law that's occurred, and there needs to be fixed through the Planning Act. So that's the whole purpose of this application, is to fix that through this validation of title process. So you can see the subject lands located on Figure 1 of the key map. It relates to 28B Narrows Side Road. And again, it results in the creation of a lot at the end of the day that was the result of an unintended merger that happened back in 2020. So if there's any questions that arise from council as part of this, I'd be happy to answer that. But just sort of at a very, very high level, everybody had assumed there was 2 lots here until this situation arose. And we just have to confirm and rectify that there actually is 2 lots that are separately conveyable here. And that's the purpose of the application. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Did I hear that Mr. Pridgar is there as well? Or an agent?
Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Sorry about that. My name is Paul Rabinovich. I'm a lawyer. I'm retained actually by Stewart Title Guarantee Company, which some of you may have heard, title insurance, to represent Adora Pridgar to fix the problem that was created by a lawyer in the past. And Ms. Robinson has set out the facts fairly well. So I don't need to speak to it unless there are questions anyone has of me.
Are there any questions from council? I see none, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that is carried. And I'm going to take us back to item 8E, and it's pretty clear, but I'll ask Dominique to speak to the drinking water sampling results, if I could.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is just a standard semi-annual water report. We haven't had any adverse samples from July until December 2021. So everything is looking good, and we continue to do our monthly samples, and we'll report back in another 6 months.
Just a quick question, Dominique. Do we have any idea how many people use our taps through the winter and on a regular basis? Do we know? Do we count gallons? I'm just curious.
I don't have the numbers, but you know, they are all used. Right now we have outdoor taps at Humphrey, of course, Orville and Foley, and they're all very well used. And we will have one in Rosso in the spring. So all 4 communities will be covered. So it's really great to see that they're being used.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I ask a follow-up question? Dominique,
sure,
just thank you. Just to clarify, we do not have a meter reader on the taps, correct?
Not on the tap itself. We do have one in Humphrey that we can see how many gallons of water are being used. We haven't reported on that before, but we can start doing that, and we can certainly add those to the other sites as well.
I'm just wondering, because they're all on wells, and it would be kind of good to know when.
It is, yeah. The more people know about them, the more it gets used, and yes.
Yeah, I know. I certainly know the one at Foley is well used, and it'd be, it wouldn't be good if you turned up and it's dry. So it would be an interesting data point to collect. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay, we're going to move now to number 8G, the design of Star Lake Road, and I'm gonna, it's a pretty clear report. I will read the motion and then I'll ask Tom to speak to it. So I have that as per recommendation of staff report number PW-RD-2022-011, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby accept the request for proposal from Plan Mac Engineering, Inc., and award contract number PW 2022-001 Star Lake Road Detail Design to Plan Mac Engineering, Inc. for the amount of $73,560 plus HFT. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I second that.
And Tom, do you want to speak to it at all?
Sure, I can. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a formal process to go through the detailed design of Star Lake Road. It is 8.8 kilometers long. It is it's the next step to building high quality roads. There are some geotech investigations, geotechnical soil samples going to be involved with this. Everything engineering related to design a road to a very well standard.
Thank you. Do councilors have any questions for Tom?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Osborne.
There were 3 submissions received. And I understand, Tom, this was the low bidder at the 73,000.
That is correct.
Can you tell me what the other prices were? They're not shown here from the other bidders.
Yes, the top of my head, the second one was approximately $100,000, maybe $110,000. I don't have the numbers ahead of me. And the other one was north of $200,000. So this one is well within well, it's a good number that we received. Let's put it that way.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Mayor, it's Daryl.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Have we worked with Plan Mac before, Tom, or have any experience or any due diligence in that sense? Again, given what you just referenced in terms of difference in the 3 bids, big discrepancy. So I just want to see if we've done some other work associated with or know something about Plan Mac.
Yeah, so we did a shortlisting exercise back in December, closed in January, where we did a background check on all of these consultants that did have some interest in, being on the list, essentially. So I know some of the people with Plan Mac. I know some of the references as well. I've reached out to them and called, and there's 0 issues as well. And any of the 5 shortlisted consultants, they're all well qualified. So no matter who we had, whoever the shortlist or the successful shortlist consultant was that won, no issues whatsoever.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Tom.
You're welcome.
Can I just make one little comment? The very last paragraph, the conclusion on page 3 of your report, which is page 316 of the agenda package. I think the last sentence should read detailed design of Star Lake Road.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Can you tell
Not
might have been
Alsace.
a copy and a paste over there?
Yeah, I think it's a
My
error.
apologies on
The
that.
amount's correct, it's different place, okay? But other than that, all in favor?
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Are we all in favor?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion that as per recommendation of staff report number PW-RD-2022-002, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby accept the request for proposal from Plan Mac Engineering, Inc. and award the contract number 2022-002 Alsace Road Detailed Design to Plan Mac Engineering, Inc. for the amount of $57,420 plus HST. Could I have a motion from Councillor Cohen?
I still move your motion, Mayor.
Thanks. And seconded by Councillor Simpson.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And Tom, do you want to speak to this one a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Very similar to the previous report. This is just a formality to reach out to the shortlisted consultants and get pricing for the detailed design of Alsace Road, or the undeveloped Alsace Road. So that's all I got. And I believe to answer, I believe Councillor Osborne on the last one, it was about $28,000 more for the second consultant, their price. So again, this is a great price in my opinion. I'm happy with it, and along with the satisfaction of who the successful consultant is as well.
Thank you. And I do want to point out that the costs associated with this construction are expected to be recovered upon completion of the project through the sale of land. So you don't see this item in the budget. It'll self-fund itself and be recoverable. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mayor. Roger.
Go ahead.
Tom answered my first question. There were other bidders. It's just not noted in this report that there were other bidders at all. But he's already answered the question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? All in favor of proceeding? Thank you. Okay. We have item number 9, which is business, which was a letter from the mayor of Aurora to several mayors asking us to consider writing about the dissolution of the Ontario Land Tribunal. And this was requested to be on the agenda by Councillor Moffat. So I'll ask Councillor Moffat to speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted really to close the loop because I presume everyone received this or at least twice over the last couple of weeks. And I just wanted to confirm with council that we would not be taking any action with respect to this request, and just wanted to close the loop. That was all. So it wasn't hanging out there as an item that we'd received individually. That was really the only request on my part, Mayor.
Okay. Jason, do you want to speak to it a little bit about why we didn't feel it was appropriate to take any action at this point?
Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to have Taylor jump in and provide a bit of background as to our reasoning and rationale why we would not necessarily support this. So I'll turn the tables over to Taylor.
Okay, go ahead, Taylor.
Thank you, Jason, and through Your Worship. At this stage, I don't know if I would agree with approving a resolution like this. I'm not quite convinced that dissolving the OLT will result in more housing in Ontario, and I don't think it's a decision that should be made lightly. One reason, without doing a ton of review on why I don't think dissolving OLT will result in more housing, is, as noted in the resolution, Ontario is one of the few provinces with a review board like this, yet the housing crisis is Canada-wide. Furthermore, as council's aware, we have seen appeals on both sides of issues, and I think we can see sometimes it works in council's favor, sometimes it's neighbors appealing neighbors, and there is a role for it, and I don't think its dissolution should be considered lightly. That's all I have for now. Any questions? I'm here.
Thank you. And I think from my perspective, we need to rock as few votes as possible until I.M. Godot is approved. Okay, we will move on to item 10. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-024, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
Michelle, do you want to speak to it at all? Pretty clear. We do this every year.
Yep, no, this is pretty clear. It's just a write-off due to a demolition.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And this is a good news one. I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-029, being a bylaw to appoint a building official bylaw enforcement officer, Matthew Keene, for the corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
And I want to say welcome to Matthew. I don't know whether you're still on the call, but we're delighted to have you on the team. All in favor?
Mayor,
Okay.
if I may,
Yep.
is this a full-time position, bylaw enforcement?
I will ask Curtis to speak to this. If Curtis is on the line.
Your worship, I believe Curtis is not with us right now, so I'm happy to jump in. This is a full-time permanent position, replacing a vacant full-time equivalent position, so.
Thank you. Great news.
Okay. I have a motion. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas for the correspondence as presented. What I didn't do was council reports. Let's go back and do council reports.
Your worship.
Gail, yep.
Sorry to interrupt. Before we move on from that bylaw, I don't believe there was actually a vote on that bylaw. Can we process that vote before you move on?
I thought I asked for all in favor. Okay, sorry. All in favor of appointing Matthew? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Council reports, and I'm going to ask Gail to go first.
Hi, everybody. My meetings since the last meeting, I had a museum meeting. At this last meeting, they passed their budget. It was, I didn't have much to say in the meeting. It was fairly quick. I also had a DSAB meeting. They also did their budget at the last meeting. And we haven't got the levy yet to hand over to Michelle, but it will be, I don't think they've sent it directly to her. I haven't seen it. Also a very good meeting. Lots and lots of emails and phone calls and talk about Sandy Bay Road and about the Muskoka Marine building on MacArthur Street. So lots of discussions with Taylor, and thank goodness for Taylor. He's handled it all very nicely by email. And thank you, Taylor, very much for your help. And that's about all. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I hope you're enjoying your vacation.
I am, and I apologize for the poor connectivity. I've never had it before, but it'll be the last time.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. I have very little to report other than, of course, talking to constituents' concerns. But I do have a DSAB meeting coming up on the 10th, which is on Thursday of this week. Other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the last council meeting, I attended a committee of adjustment meeting, the 4 applications. Some of them quite interesting. I also attended the library board meeting in January for the January meeting, and we were wrestling with some different issues. And again, we had an interesting year with the libraries due to the COVID. So, and speculation as to, what we can get opened up, when we can get it opened up, that type of thing. Park had some very good news. Last week, we were notified, we put in an application to FedNor for some funding, and we're notified that we're approved to receive $102,000 over the next few years. And this funding is for to support signage in developing a tourism product focused on the history of the trail, which is really quite exciting. It's going to allow us to do some pretty cool things, I think. Making the trail much more interesting to use and to so that's great news. And the other thing I had to report was other than the really impressive performance last night by the Prairie Sound girl, Megan, I have there's 2 young ladies in my ward that are competing in the Olympics. Allie Nellmeyer is in the women's downhill, and Jennifer Hockrig is in the women's snowboard. So that's kind of interesting. It's always nice to, have a sort of a bit of an interest when you're watching these things. So hopefully all these young ladies and the 2 gentlemen from Prairie Sound that are in cross country skiing and curling, hopefully they all do well. That's it from Ward 4 this month.
Well, we should be hometown proud. Hometown proud for all our Olympians. They're making great strides.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I watched Megan Oldham from Prairie Sound this morning. Freestyle skier, doing a great job. I attended a CPAC meeting, I guess since our last council meeting, and you all have copies in the correspondence of our numbers. They are down for the 4th quarter of 21, which is good news. The next meeting I have is EMS on the 24th. I'm hoping we don't get more bad news out of there because it seems to be a costly venture. Other than that, nothing more to report. Thank you.
And Councillor Cole. I know you
thank you.
Fiddling.
Thank you, Mayor. It's again, the Belvedere issues keep us busy here. And on January 24th, I had a Belvedere Finance Committee meeting, and we're happy to report that our finances at Belvedere are in really good shape. And this continues to be the case, which is why we've been able to refund money to the township from time to time. So January 25th, there was a Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting. Again, a good meeting with lots very well attended. that was January 25th. The 26th and 27th, I had 2 meetings with over the life lease situation at Belvedere. And as you know, with the pending move of Belvedere to the West Prairie Sound Health Center property, the life lease is kind of up in the air. So we met on the 27th with a legal firm, Miller Thompson, who's advising us on how we can convert life leases to rentals, in which case we would be required to buy out the life leases and rent them back to the owners, current owners, in a way that would not put us under the rental conditions that are typical for rentals in Ontario. So we're working through some of those issues. Met with the constituents on February the 1st over the housing thing, which was on tonight for Rankin Lake Road. And February the 7th, another constituent, that was today, over proposed housing for individual housing on Sundog Lake Road. So lots of things going on, and we just hope that the MZO thing carries forward. In some of my meetings, I've been with some of the Parry Sound councillors, and I'm happy to report that not all of the Parry Sound councillors have the same approach to this as the mayor and the CAO of Parry Sound. So some of them are much more supportive of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles and Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a pretty busy month, working on a couple of files continuously. The Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Plans, ICECAP. We've have an upcoming meeting as part of that, as part of the governance committee reviewing our documents. It's actually been almost 4 years now. So we had in place some tweaks to be done. Also working with Muskoka Watershed Council in terms of getting their governance documents in place. They were incorporated kind of quickly with limited thought in terms of governance. And as Councillor Fellner has found out on the park to park, sometimes those are the nuts and bolts that need to get done properly so you don't go offside. So working quite a bit on that. We have a upcoming AGM for Muskoka Watershed, so working on the budget with respect to that for 2022. Met with our planning consultant and Seguin residents regarding a site plan on the 18th of January. Also that day attended the Ministry of Infrastructure session on Ontario Connects on broadband. And I believe the mayor was also on that. On the 24th and 25th, attended the virtual Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference. My report is in the council package. I did speak to the mayor about a week ago. I would say that it didn't have as much zip as even the prior years. I think some of the sessions were a little weak, and hopefully new and improved in-house one will exist in 2023. Working also with other members of council on the official plan review. Attended a webinar on from the Electric Vehicle Society on battery, and it was interesting to note that the way things are going, there will not be enough room on the grid for generation, and as a result, the grid will need to get supported by electric cars, such that during the off-peak hours they would be pushing power into the grid, and then during on-peak, for on-peak times, such that there would be enough generation to support electricity. They're doing a pilot project in Nova Scotia on that. It was interesting to see where the demand is going for that, and the need and necessity to have electric cars. Several emails on plowing, short-term accommodations, and bylaw over the last month. Wanted to, 2 items, one the mayor already touched on, but wanted to give congratulations to Debbie Allen for her Of course, you can see that in our council package. It's the last page. And getting recognized for that hard work. Also, Sergeant Cement received some funding from the Ontario government with regards to the plant that they're building in Seguin. It was nice to see that. It would have been nice to see a little bit more recognition that it was in Seguin. But good news. So hopefully that will be moving forward here in 2022. That is all I have, Mayor, for my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My time's been pretty busy since the last meeting. January 11th was an airport commission meeting. Construction is underway on the improvement of the new runway. On January 13th, I attended the Impact Strategic Plan review. And then Councillor Moffat mentioned the webinar on broadband with the Ministry of Infrastructure. January 20th, Premier Ford, the ministers, Elliott, Beth and Falvey updated us on public health measures. I can't say we learned anything that wasn't already in the media, but they did call a heads of council meeting. Then the Roma meeting, which Councillor Moffat talked about, it didn't feel like they had as many subject matter experts on their topics as they've had in the past. I attended two delegations, one with several of the mayors from West Prairie Sound, and we were disappointed that the Minister of Education sent his parliamentary assistant. He didn't come himself, and we were asking them to reevaluate the size and plans for the mega school. The local Board of Education refused to meet with the mayors the week prior to Roma and sent us a pretty lengthy letter saying that everything that was assumed in 2013 holds true today. We did get the parliamentary assistant to kind of go, really? And we're trying to follow up with an assistant deputy minister, but I will report that I'm disappointed that I don't feel that the local Board of Education or the ministry in Ontario are listening to us. I mean, you think about 2013, it was more than two councils ago. It was pre-COVID. It was pre-housing crisis. It was pre there being two kindergartens in Humphrey and in McDougall. So we're a little bit stumped that they think everything is the same as 2013. I also attended a delegation with Jason and representatives of our airport with Hydro, and it was far more successful. We've been told repeatedly that there was nothing we could do to improve the amount of hydro coming into our area. But on the delegation call was one of the engineers, and she laid out a path forward, and I believe the airport people are working on it. So it's amazing what a face-to-face meeting can do with the right people on the call. January 25th, we had an airport operations meeting. The 26th, I attended a really useful webinar on development fees and learned a ton. And on the 28th was the meeting that Jason and I had with Jamie McGarvey and Clayton Harris concerning the MZO. It did take us 2 weeks to have them accept our invitation for a meeting, which was disappointing in and of itself. And I just want to talk about a couple quick things. Councillor Moffat mentioned the Sergeant media release about the allocation of money. As soon as I saw it, I sent a letter off to NOHFC and said, excuse me, this is in Seguin, not Parry Sound. And the media release is being released tomorrow with a correction. The other thing I've been getting is requests from our constituents about the food cycler program. I don't know whether any of you are getting those requests. All I'm doing right now is sending them to Katie in operations. So I'm not sure the status of that program, but if you get constituents wanting to be part of it, send them to Katie and when we get the machines, hopefully they will be on the list. And that's it for me. So, with council reports, I will read that motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin is hereby receive board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for the February 7th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Kinsler.
I second that.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. So I just want to check with the clerk. Do I read the next one about confirming the proceedings and then we go back into closed?
No, reverse, actually. We'll go into closed and then we do that. But
Okay.
perhaps by recommendation, we could take a 5-minute break or whatever council prefers.
Do people want to take a break? We've been at it since
It's been over
2:30.
3 hours.
Okay, well, I've got 25 to 7 your time, so why don't we say we reconvene at 6:45? That's okay with everybody?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. If everyone's still there, I did make it. Actually, if I get you to read the resolution to put us in close, then we'll do the break and that'll cut off the YouTube stream.
Okay, so I will just read the original motion, but with the second part that we're talking about. Correct?
Yes, so all that we'll be doing this time is the personal matters, the labor relations and the education and training.
Right, okay. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 6:36 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees related to human resources matters, labor relations and employee negotiations related to human resource matters, and educating or training the members related to the Integrity Commissioner Code of Conduct advice. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat on this?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, great. All in favor of going back into closed following our break? Okay, all in favor. So we'll see you back here at 6:45 to do the last few items in closed.